Hi. When I was asked to speak here tonight, I was obviously thrilled, but I also questioned myself and if I was qualified enough to speak on environmental sustainability, because I haven't conducted research in microplastics, and I'm not an environmental studies major or minor, and I didn't even attend the climate march. But then I remembered that sustainability is not just for the environmentalists and the vegans, it's for every individual that wants to create change. So that's why I'm qualified to speak tonight, just as much as the next person that wants to create a better future. And tonight, I hope to encourage you to feel qualified too. For me, as a Christian, my motivation for caring for the planet comes from an inherent understanding that my ability to love God, love others, and loving myself comes from actively showing up and caring for the planet. In our vastly connected and globalized world, it makes sense that we're not only caring for the earth based in its inherent beauty, but also because when we care for the planet, we're also caring for others and ourselves, mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. In every area of our lives, taking care makes a difference. But this takes work. Caring takes effort and energy. This is true just for most everything in life. Relationships, automobiles, you get it. When you don't take care of something, it falls apart. And before I understood the science behind climate change, I understood this. And this, I believe, is where we should draw our energy from to start caring for the planet and enacting environmental sustainability into our lives. The simple idea of caring. And to frame this idea of caring, I wanted to talk about 3 ways that I found to enact it into my life. By being a conscious consumer, by saying no to more, and by taking political action. To preface, these ideas take some time to cultivate into our worlds, but most good things do. And it's not realistic for us to completely restructure our lives to live 100% sustainably. And that's not what I'm asking you to do either. And if you've ever felt guilty for not doing more, just know this. We don't need 10 people living perfectly sustainable lives. We need 10 million people doing it imperfectly. So as we begin to recognize our connection to the planet and then take on this attitude of care, we get to live more intentional lives as individuals and then create greater change together as a community. So to begin, by being a conscious consumer, it's my favorite way to be environmentally sustainable and also my friends and I's favorite conversation to have. It's all about how we're shopping, and when we're valuing who made our products, how they were made, and where they were made, we get to care for the planet, and we also get to care for ourselves. It's not enough to believe that packaging with a green leaf on it is made environmentally friendly. That's just clever marketing. We need to take an active investment and energy into researching the companies that we're buying from and making sure that they're good stewards of the earth too. On the screen, I've included some of my favorite companies next to some steps I think you should take before buying, but these companies I've already done some research on, so feel free to buy from them because I know that they're doing good things for the planet. We're the consumers, right? So these companies are making products for us. That means we have the power. So when we shop with purpose, companies have to respond and innovate to respond to our demands. But this is not the only way that we consume. We also consume content. In our fake news world, it's more important than ever to be conscious about the content that we're consuming. With all the fancy algorithms and selling of our information, we know that the more we click on something, the more that kind of content will come back into our feeds. So, if we seek out information about environmental issues, we'll get more of that, and we'll have an understanding and an engagement in our world around us. And we'll also stay inspired by following people who are actively reusing and reducing and sharing that information online. And I think that's really important as people who are trying to enact environmental sustainability into our lives to continue to feel inspired via all the others out there who are doing the same thing. So when we consume products and content more consciously, we're communicating what kind of world we want to live in. My second thought is to practice saying no thank you to more things. Because when we reduce the amount of things we have in our life, we get to better ourselves and the planet. Most of the things that we consume are plastic. And plastic doesn't disappear. It can't dissolve without a significant use of energy. And when we continue to buy, those companies and industries continue to make without a need to shift their way of producing. This means that our planet will just continue to fill up with garbage, and it has no way of getting rid of it on its own. The movie WALL-E was not created as a cute love story for robots, but it's a drastic illustration of what excessive consumption looks like, and we're really good at it. But when we say no to buying more things and consuming more plastic, we get to say yes to a healthier world. On the screen are ways that I found to reduce my waste and consumption while simultaneously bettering my life and making healthier choices for myself. It can be fun and creative, but in my experience, I've also found that saying no is one of my biggest challenges. So when I pause and give myself the space to be intentional, I get to be reminded of the goodness that comes from saying no to more. And thirdly, take political action. I know this can be a touchy subject, but when we show up for the environment politically, we are in turn showing up for those who we've been called to serve and love. Families who are arriving at US borders are not only escaping corrupt governments and violence, but also a land that can no longer serve them. By 2050, an estimated 200 million people will be displaced by climate change. This environmental issue is a humanitarian crisis, and we need to act on it. But the environment cannot speak for itself, so it needs advocates. And when we speak for the environment, we're in turn speaking up for those who are going to be infected by our changing climate. And political action doesn't need to be so divisive. It's not only voting consciously, but it also means showing up in your local communities and knowing the needs and what's happening around you directly. It takes action, and it takes an investment of time and energy. But it's so important. And it's not as difficult as you may think. It could be a quick Google search to find your local representative and giving them a call. It could take under 5 minutes. When we shift our attitude towards political action for the environment, we realize that we're taking action steps towards serving others and helping to protect the land on which they live, whether it's abroad, nationally, or locally, because climate change affects all of us, if you didn't know. So being a conscious consumer, saying no to more, and taking political action are the 3 best ways that I found to be more environmentally sustainable in my life. And as I stated before, each of these steps takes intention and effort. But what I found in my quest to be more sustainable is that the right thing to do, which can sometimes be the hardest thing to do, ends up being easier when we recognize that these changes we're making give us the power we need to create a better future. There are a million different ways to enact these ideas into your individual lives. And the effort comes from committing to the change that it'll take. But it's worth it, undoubtedly. It's worth it for the health of the planet, for the health of our global community, and for the health of you and I as individuals. An easy way to keep these ideas synthesized and collected in your mind as you go about your daily life is this word, Unlitter. The title of my talk is also a campaign that was started in Florida. It's the simple idea that when you see litter on the ground, you pick it up, and suddenly you're unlittering. It's a simple word to cultivate an attitude of consciousness around caring for the planet. There's so much that we can do as individuals if we just start where we are, use what we have, and do what we can. Thank you.